With me now is the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, Senator Mark Warner. Thank you so much for being here. So the president said that Bill Pulte is right for the job temporarily because he's less shackled. He said that being in this job temporarily gives you more power for a somewhat limited time. As the vice chair of this committee, you understand how the DNI works. What could Pulte actually do with that kind of power that
first of all, I didn't think Trump could still surprise me, but he literally shocked me, and I think all of my Republican colleagues on the Intel Committee, by picking somebody with literally no security background. As you pointed out, he didn't even have a security clearance. Matter of fact, the job description, because this position was created after 9/11 to coordinate all our 18 intelligence agencies, was supposed to be somebody with national security. It was written in the law. Once again, Trump completely ignores that. And the idea that his only asset in terms of President Trump's eyes is he abused his power when he was head of the mortgage regulatory agencies by giving up confidential information on mortgages of Adam Schiff and Lisa Cook at the Fed and Tish James, the New York Attorney General. What could he then do in terms of giving up confidential information, having access to all of our nation's top secrets? It's mind-blowing. And the notion as well that he could stay in this job, no matter what Trump says, until after the election. And we know Donald Trump wants to try to interfere in our elections. See his own words about Republicans taking over voting in certain states. Giving this guy who will simply roll over or do whatever is, I think it's a national security threat. I think it is a choice that even my Republican friends agree is a disaster.
Well, let me just ask you about that last point you made, because President Trump said it very clearly that Pulte, quote, may find out some things about rigged elections. You talked a little bit just now about how you interpret that, but what legal role does the DNI have that could allow him to interfere in elections?
He has no legal role. But as you've seen with the prior Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, where I believe, again, she violated the law by showing up with that domestic Justice Department seizure of ballots in Atlanta, Georgia. Clearly, she had no authority to be there. But now you've got a guy who, again, loyal only to Trump, and he's going to have all 18 agencies to oversee. I think it is that kind of unpredictability, that kind of potential abuse that's even got my Republicans concerned.
But you think it's about 2020 and trying to find something that the president believes proves the unfounded notion that the 2020 election was stolen? Or are you worried about it in the future, in this November election?
Trump is obsessed about the fact that he lost in 2020. I mean, matter of fact, many of the people who come before my committee, it's almost a threshold question. They can't acknowledge that Biden won. But I also think there's a focus on 26 and 28.
What could he do with this job in 26?
What he could do is take a single piece of intelligence that may not be corroborated or make something up and say country X is going to interfere or is sending people to encourage non-citizens to vote, and that be used as an excuse for Trump to bring in ICE, federal troops, close down elections, seize polling stations. The list is extraordinarily frightening. And again, this guy doesn't have any national security background. The idea that he's going to get access to all of our most classified information as well means he is a security risk in and of itself in terms of disclosing things beyond the threat I think he poses to the elections.
You know, polygraphs are usually required for access to intelligence, the community's classified network. They're not always mandatory for high-ranking appointees. Should Pulte be required to take a polygraph?
Absolutely. And he needs to have a background check. I mean, you don't turn over these jobs. That's the part, again, where I said earlier, I didn't
He must have gotten some background check for his housing.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I didn't think Trump could still surprise me. But he did by this move, and frankly, he shocked all of my Republican colleagues, including, listen, this was the guy Pulte, who Secretary Bessent, who's not exactly a fighter, said he was going to punch his blank face. This is a guy that has created enormous enemies inside the Trump administration already. And now, what could go wrong by giving him the keys to 18 different intelligence agencies?
One of the things that the president says he wants Pulte to do is fire some employees in the intelligence community because it's too big. Setting aside the way that he might actually go about doing that, is there room for cuts? Has the intelligence community become too bloated?
I think the Director of National Intelligence role, which was supposed to be coordinating, has gotten too big.
Yeah.
And again, I'm working with Tom Cotton on a reform of the DNI. We did some of that last year. But what I'm afraid of, as we've seen before, is the people that are fired are the intelligence professionals who are willing to speak truth to power. If we don't speak truth to power, this is how we ended up in the war in Iraq if you start cooking the books.
On Friday, you and other Democrats voted to block reauthorization of a critical surveillance program over the president's appointment of Pulte to DNI. The deadline for the program's renewal is this coming Friday. Are you willing to let the surveillance program expire if the president doesn't change his mind on Pulte?
And 7 Republican senators also voted against the extension of this program. It is a controversial program. I think it's a necessary program, and we've worked on even further reforms. But the idea that we're going to allow Mr. Pulte to be potentially in charge of how this tool is used or manipulated, that's going to be a very uphill path to convince Democrats. And this was a self-inflicted harm. Almost the president, I'm not sure he really wants renewal of 702, because why would he throw a live hand grenade with this kind of controversial pick 10 days before its renewal date?
Well, yesterday, the Republican chair of your committee, Senator Cotton, as well as the Judiciary Chair, Senator Grassley, sent Secretary Rubio a letter asking him to plan for a, quote, potential significant gap in foreign intelligence collection. So if Democrats don't reauthorize this, are you risking national security?
The person who's put national security at risk is Donald Trump by choosing someone totally unqualified.
But you're the one who has
at a moment when our nation is at war in Iran and our adversaries are coming at us. This bill was on a path to, I think, getting passed and renewed. But I think the responsibility, and candidly, most of my Republican colleagues agree, lie with the White House.
I just want to be crystal clear here. You will not vote to renew this surveillance program, FISA, unless President Trump switches gears and pulls back.
Let's see what happens this week. Let's see what happens this week. But I don't see any path to convincing enough Democrats, because they're going to need about 15.
What about you? You're a leader on this.
Let's see how the week plays out. I'm not going to take that ultimate position until we see what reaction. The White House bears the responsibility to fix this. They have the power to do it. They could do it today. Let's see what happens.
I want to ask about the Democratic candidate for Senate in Maine, Graham Plattner. New reports of unsettling behavior towards women he dated and revelations that he sexted multiple women while married. Now, Plattner strongly disputes allegations of physical intimidation or altercation. What do you think? Do you have concerns about the potential for Plattner to be your Senate colleague?
If these allegations are true, obviously they're disturbing. As father of 3 daughters. But at the end of the day, the folks in Maine are going to decide that. I've got my own campaign. I'm trying to get rehired this year, and that's what I'm focused on. I wish we lived in a world where everybody's behavior was maybe what we had in the earlier times from elected officials, but folks in Maine are going to make that decision.
Well, I understand that you're saying that, but Democrats were quick to believe other women who accused powerful people. Christine Blasey Ford made allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. When allegations surfaced 9 years ago about former Senator Al Franken, you said sexual harassment, misconduct, and assault is never all right and cannot be tolerated. Should those women who are saying these things about Plattner be believed? I
think the sexting I think he's acknowledged that. I think his wife has acknowledged that. This is a guy that served, had PTSD. End of the day, though, is it really the choice of folks in Washington, or is it the choice of the folks in Maine? I think it's going to be up to the folks in Maine. I've not really followed this closely. I got a full plate in front of me in terms of intel and national security in my own race. But does it disturb me? Yes, of course it does.
Before I let you go, you mentioned 3 daughters. I know that Your daughter Madison passed away very young, too young, 36, in April. Juvenile diabetes and other health issues were the cause. Can you share something that we should know or remember about your daughter?
She was an extraordinary person, and a parent burying a child is unthinkable. Last couple of years, she had gotten much better. She had a variety of issues, eating disorder, other things. But she really said to me, she came to love the fact that I was in the Senate. She said, "Dad, you got the power. You got to try to make things better." So as I think about some of the days in this job where it's really hard, I remember my daughter's wish, so I want to try to make things better.
Beautiful child, beautiful family, and may her memory be a blessing, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Dina.